Hey everybody, welcome back to Film Feature 43. Today, we're going to talk about secret sequels once again, and the movie we're going to talk about is Christopher Nolan's Tenet. And is it related to the film Inception? So I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of the film, and then a review of what I thought of the film, and then I'm going to kind of get into whether or not it is a sequel to the movie Inception, what I think, what the characters think. It's kind of a familiar thread that Christopher Nolan likes to weave through his movies. So let's get to it. Right off the bat, I feel like someone needs to
explain this to me like I'm a 2-year-old, okay? Because there's an element to this thing I just cannot get through my thick head.
To start the movie, we see a bunch of patrons inside the Kiev Opera House, and they get taken hostage. The police throw in this gas that knocks out all the patrons immediately, but the bad guys have time to hurry up and put gas masks on. Bad guys set up these bombs, and the protagonist, whose name is Protagonist, goes through and he starts collecting these bombs from beside the seats, and he gets held up at gunpoint, but happens to be saved by what seems to be a bullet traveling backwards through the body of the guy holding him hostage and into the gun of another guy, and that guy runs away. He thinks this is weird, and he runs out of the building with the bombs that are about ready to explode, throws them up in the balcony, and they blow up. The explosion's big enough to be able to be seen from outside the opera house, and nobody gets killed from this, which is a little bit unbelievable, but we continue to see the protagonist get kidnapped. As he's kidnapped, he tries to kill himself with a cyanide pill, and he wakes up the next day in a hospital, and he goes and talks to a man. The man says that the cyanide pill was a test to get into a secret organization called Tenet. So the cyanide pill is like that scene from The Kingsman where you have to shoot your dog to get into the organization. It's a fake out, but in this case you think that you're going to die, so take that for whatever you think. Talking to this gentleman that brings him into the organization leads him to go talk to another gentleman, which is our Christopher Nolan obligatory Michael Caine cameo. That leads him to talk to a scientist who explains that there are these bullets that are able to go backwards through time and reload themselves back into the gun.
Why does it feel so strange?
You're not shooting the bullet. You're catching it.
Whoa.
And then she shows him these artifacts from a war that hasn't happened yet, so it's his job to stop this war. So that leads him to another man, but the man that he's looking for is actually a woman, and the woman leads him to another man, and the man's wife is who he ends up meeting with to get to the man. It's really kind of confusing and kind of bogs down the movie a little bit. The interaction with this woman leads to an Under Siege style kitchen fight. And then the movie kind of turns into an Ocean's 11 on steroids type film where you have the protagonist team up with two other people, and there's a plane jacking that turns into that scene from Airplane where the plane flies through the building. And then there's this fight with the protagonist fighting this man who's going backwards through time, so the fight's kind of wonky, and you have the guy doing flips backwards and things of that nature. Then the movie kind of takes a turn into a James Bond / Jason Bourne-esque film. Protagonist is good for the sake of being good. The bad guy is evil for the sake of being evil, and that's kind of all the motivation we get. The protagonist inverts himself to save the villain's wife, and he gets Han from Fast and the Furious where the car gets blown up.
Dominic Toretto. You don't know me. About to.
And while I was doing my research, I found out that this is Christopher Nolan's favorite Fast and the Furious film.
I'm sort of original recipe. I mean, the Fast and Furious, the Rob Cohen original. But I've got a very soft spot for Tokyo Drift, actually.
So that was kind of interesting. The protagonist lives because fire actually creates ice whenever you're inverted, and so he almost dies of hypothermia. And he relives the movie as we've already seen it, but backwards, and then he inverts himself to go forwards. After that, there's this big battle where there's some soldiers going in forward, some soldiers going in reverse, and they are trying to stop this bomb from going off. And we find out at the end of the film that the protagonist actually started Tenet in the future and implanted all these ideas and set these scenes in motion in his younger self to set up Tenet in the future. And that's the end of the movie. As far as my review goes, the plot is very dense, a lot of crisscrossing that kind of makes it a little confusing, and you have this character going to this character, going to this character, and that kind of slows the film down a little bit. You can even ask the cast.
Apparently, Robert, you still don't get it. Do you get Tenet?
It was quite a relief to watch it and be like, I think I did get it more than I realized when I was shooting it.
And had great action scenes when everything was going forward, and when you started going in reverse, there were some things that were a little hard to follow, a little wonky. It looked like practice fighting because it kind of looked like it was in slow motion. The pumps were being pulled backwards. Sometimes it looks kind of cool, and then other times it doesn't really play that well. One more criticism that I have of this film is the world building's kind of complex. You have this character that leads to this character, that leads to this character, that leads to this character, that leads to this character. I feel like that's what Christopher Nolan was going for, but that kind of hindered my enjoyment of the movie whenever you're being bogged down by all these character interactions. Instead of telling us in simple terms, this is what's going on, and here's how it's going to play out, you had one person lead to another, and that really bogged down the first probably hour of this movie. All in all, I'd give the film a C. It wasn't a bad film, but on the flip side, I don't think it was one of Nolan's best films. As far as is Tenet a sequel to Inception, where there was a lot of speculation before this film came out that it was going to be the sequel, I think that the star John David Washington kind of said it best. I'd say Tenet is an in-law to Inception. They're relatives by marriage. They get together on Thanksgiving, family barbecues, like that kind of thing. Other than that, one lives in Europe and the other lives in Compton. And I have to agree with that. I think these films are related and they're connected, but not true sequels to each other. They're not in the same franchise. Very possible that they're in the same universe, where Cobb and his team are over here doing one thing, and you have the Tenet organization over here doing another. But I don't believe that Tenet is a direct sequel to Inception. They do have themes running through them, just like a lot of Nolan's films have. And my theory is that Christopher Nolan likes the idea of implanting thoughts in other people's minds. Let me explain. In the movie Memento, the main character implants thoughts in his own mind because he has memory loss through pictures and tattoos. His past self is implanting thoughts in his future self's mind. In Interstellar, he is implanting an idea in his daughter's mind from the future using the bookcase. The one that this theme runs through most heavily is obviously Inception, where the main characters, that's their goal, is to plant ideas in other people's minds. And even in this film, Tenet, you have a future version of the main character sending thoughts back through time travel and other characters back into his younger self so the organization can be created. That theme really runs through Christopher Nolan's films, and it even bled into this film, which kind of ties them all together. Whether or not they're actual sequels is besides the point. They are tied together through that theme. So that's my video. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below what movie you think I should do next. I did Die Hard in my previous video, so go ahead and watch that, and I'll see you in the next one.